right, guys. Sorry I ran a little bit late. I had a computer update. But tonight I have John Hervey back on, the author of
Hey.
Magna and the Posse, and my personal favorite, Black Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's my
Wah!
favorite. I just want to say, I have to start and just talk about Black Tiger real quick.
Yes.
This, you know what? Everyone should aspire to do their books like how you did your books. This was the best quality book out of all the books that I backed. People are going to hate me right now, but the quality of your, like the pages,
Yeah.
what are these pages? They're the softest pages I've ever touched in my life.
I was so happy with the quality of the paper.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I mean, and the artwork is
Oh,
Rod's artwork is outstanding.
oh yes.
So I really felt like, it's like I think we're all experimenting a little bit, with paper stock and all these different things. But I feel like we struck well with this
Oh, you
book.
struck gold. I
Yeah.
mean, this is I'm going like this right now. I would never even normally do this to a book. It made
Yeah.
it even faster for me to read. I
Yeah.
just couldn't you know what, the story was so good. I just couldn't put it down, and all of the action sequences in it, and then just there's a lot of kind of like mystery in it, trying to figure out certain things and piece puzzles together.
Yes.
This is like my top book I backed last year. It's
Oh,
this
thank
book.
you so much. You'll be
This
happy to
it's so
know.
good.
You'll be happy to know that the pencils and inks are already done on the sequel,
Woo!
and it's a third colored, and it's part of it's being lettered. So that will be the next campaign.
I mean, oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. And I hope the book is bigger than this one because I just wanted to read more. I wanted so much
So
more.
it's the same size as that, but it finishes the story arc. So
No.
like, remember how big Legacy of Fear is?
Yes.
It's the same size kind of a story arc. So you're going to get, another 86 pages, and that will
Okay.
complete the story arc for you.
I mean, this story is just so well done. I know I wrote a big Twitter post about it after I
I
finished
so
reading
appreciate
it.
that.
And I just, there's so much that I could say about this book and the characters in it. Everything is just very well done. And the language that you use when you're writing, it just flows so beautifully. It's so fluid. Um, I,
I
I just,
appreciate
I
that.
have to, can I show something?
Yeah, you can show. Yeah,
I
you
just
can
want to
totally
show.
show.
All right. Like, look at Rod's artwork.
Yes.
Like, look at this. The action sequences. There's energy in this. I love energy. There's
Yes.
everything's so dynamic. I mean, there's nothing. This is just, there's nothing boring about this series. You know how there's always some kind of like a lull, but
Yes.
not in this book
Well,
at
I
all.
think I think that's the beauty of comics. There's really no need for a lull in comics. I mean, it's like your constraints are what? Your imagination and page rates, so you can do whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is that you want to do. You're not constrained the same way you are in other media. So why not take full advantage of that? You know,
Oh,
so I mean, with the story, um, I'm really happy with where the story has gone. So we've completed that story arc. And one of the things I really appreciated your tweet because, you know, I always let people kind of know what the trope of the book is, but I never dive too deep about what's actually happening in the book because I feel like it's almost like a giveaway. I want people to get the book and be pleasantly surprised, like, wow, there's a lot more going on here
oh yes.
than I thought.
There's a lot of depth within this storyline. For a storyline that has such high energy and high action within it, there's a lot of depth in this story.
I appreciate that. I'll tell you honestly, one of the things that I'm hoping to aspire to as the world continues to grow, um, there's some side stories that I want told, and I've already been kind of looking at other writers and artists that I want to tell particular types of stories, just because there are different people that have, I think, different proclivities and different um, real strengths.
Yeah.
I mean, there's kind of a little bit of like a horror element that I think I want to do with one of the side characters, and it's about getting the right team together. And I realize that I as a writer, I am a diverse writer, but I also know that like I know that there's some things that I want to do that I think some other people can deliver better than I can deliver. So I just want to be in a place where I can hire them.
You know what? Your writing style is so unique, and I don't think there is anything quite like it, to be honest. I mean, there is a, how can I put it? It's not only emotion that you convey, but there's also, should I say, like charisma, intelligence, and confidence comes across very clearly within the writing. You feel a lot. And just the words, like your the language skills. You must have did well in school. I just want to say, I
You know,
just
you
the
know what the funny thing is? The funny thing is this: is that if it weren't for comics, I probably wouldn't have been reading as a kid.
really,
But no, seriously. So I mean, like, so my mom was buying comics. I
I
remember some of
remember
her
that.
friends that had daughters were just like, "What are you doing? Why are you buying this boy these cartoon books?" She's like, "Well, he's reading something." But the thing that happened, because the thing, like books in like those 70s and 80s comic books were so well written that
Mm-hmm.
I started off by buying the books and I was basically just kind of going through the story through the art. And you get about 80% of the story, but I was like, I actually need to read these things. So I started reading and I literally started reading with a dictionary next to me. Because you're thinking these are comic books, but every page had words that I had no idea what they meant.
Yeah.
I mean, because these people were auteurs. I mean, these folks knew how to write,
Oh
and
yes.
and they were writing prose in comic book form. So I went from reading comics. I'm reading comics with my dictionary. That took me to reading fiction and science fiction. And one thing that I think my mom was always really good with me about is she was just like, "Hey, if you see a word that you don't know, look it up." So I would literally do that. So like, how you read a story and you see a word, but you pretty much kind of know what it means, so you can kind of flow through. I would stop and I would look up that word, and that just kind of developed for me, a pretty diverse vocabulary because I just started. I couldn't read anything without getting into my dictionary.
Yeah. I love that. That's something I actually did, and like I actually do with my clients now. And I actually do with when I was running Pokemon League. So I ran a Pokemon League for 10 years up until COVID hit. And,
Mm,
in order to play the game, the TCG game, you have to understand what the words mean.
yes.
So, like, there are 5 year olds reading the words paralyzed and hypnotized. Oh, what does that mean, Kayla? So, we had a dictionary around my league just so people could understand what it is they're reading and what happenings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's one of the best ways to go about it.
No, and for me, comics, it's such a fun medium. It's kind of
Mhm.
it's for me. I've really gone full circle. That was the first medium that I ever really loved,
Yeah.
comics, and then it was fun. It was fun to see different characters that I grew up with being made into movies, and I appreciated that. But comics is really you really get that left brain, right brain activity, and you don't get that anywhere else in any other medium. Either what you're doing is, exceptionally passive,
Yep.
you're just watching, or if you're gaming, you're in it.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
But comics, there's something special about it because it does really, when comics are well written and not overwritten, so they're not
Mhm.
telling you things that you can already see, and not underwritten, leaving
Mhm.
things. You need left brain, right brain
Yes.
to really grasp the whole story. And that's one of the things I really strive for. It's, my scripts they're pretty dense, but they're for the purpose of getting the artist on the same page. So the things that we show, and we don't write, you don't tell. But the things that need to be told, you tell. So
Yes.
on any given page, there's a combination of things that you've got to see and things that you have to read to, complete the story.
Oh, yes.
And to me, that's what makes comics awesome.
Oh, no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, people always ask me, is it, do you prefer art or do you prefer the story? I prefer both.
Yeah.
I like them to both be on par with each other. You
You
know?
have to have both, and it's like, yeah, and I get it. It is a visual medium, and it's like if the art isn't attractive, you may not pick up the book in the first place. But if the writing isn't on point, you
Mm.
may pick up that first issue, but
Yes,
you may not come
definitely.
back again.
No, exactly. Exactly. I asked a question today, and I asked people, let me go to my Twitter really quick, because I asked a question that was similar. So hold on one second. Let me pull it up. So, I have my question of the day every day. I just like to pick everyone's brain and
Mhm.
see, how people feel about things, or, what's on their mind, because it helps me learn about everything. It also helps me be a better editor when I hear about artists
Yeah.
or writers just talking about their experiences or things they've learned. So I asked, how many issues of a comic series do you need to read to be invested in the storyline or the characters, and why?
Mhm. So
What
that
would you
that's a
think?
great question. So this leads to why I produced my first story, Black Tiger, as a 6-issue miniseries. The way that story was written, because you can write your stories. Some stories are, you almost like, it's almost like, and I don't want to give the analogies of like TV and movies per se,
Okay.
but some story arcs have a longer tail.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes what I find, and this is, I think, one of the challenges that we have in crowdfunding, given kind of the periodicity of the books, it's like you may get a single issue or you may get 2 issues. Now, if I'm going to a shop to get a book on a monthly basis, you know what? I'm willing to go for the ride. You know what? I'll come back next month and I'll pick this thing up. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
see if you have grabbed me enough to want to come back. But if I'm not going to get the next book for a year,
Mm.
you may not grab a hold of me with a single issue.
Very true.
Because you haven't gotten into, really, whether it's the conceit or really the heart, or really gotten into the real flow. And because I think for every story that you write, I think the artist and the writer, they you're writing, but then at some point you develop, almost a groove.
Mm-hmm.
And then the characters, okay, she's now developed her own voice. This guy has now developed his own voice. That doesn't always happen right out the gate, and sometimes you need time to kind of let that develop. I think the challenge when you're only putting out a book maybe once a year or every other year is, is there enough in there? Am I invested enough to say, like, you know what? I'll wait a year. I'll wait
Mm.
2 years to get the conclusion to this story. So, like with Black Tiger, with Legacy of Fury, I gave a complete story arc. I'm not recommending it from a financial perspective. It probably wasn't the best move in terms of, financially, but it was 172 pages of story. So
Yeah.
you really got to learn who the characters were. You got to really learn their motivations, and the characters really took on a life of their own. So the subsequent book was a little bit smaller, but if you had the previous book, you already know Jin. You already know a number of the characters in the story. So it's not a matter of simply like, oh, who is she? What are her motivations? Well, you've got that. Now we can start running.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough question because I've seen some people pull it off. I've seen some people do a really good job, and it's almost like just the first couple of beats. It's you oftentimes you'll get the action that'll bring you back, but you may not get the character development
Yes.
that makes
Okay.
you say,
That's, you
okay,
said
the,
it.
the action is cool, but do I really care about this character yet?
That's,
Mm,
yes, that's exactly what it is for me. It's whether or not that I bond with the character. I understand everything with the character. Not that I personally relate to the character. I'm not
yeah.
looking for that. I'm just trying to, have an attachment to that character in some type of way where I want to see what is happening, what is going on with them.
That's right.
So you hit the nail on the head. So you said something interesting to me, and you said about basically your finances with the book. So what do you mean that it may not have been financially the maybe do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not the
Well,
smartest move because what you did. I'm curious now. You said it, John. I have to ask it. You're
well,
very honest. I know I'm going to get an honest answer.
I'm going to give you I'm going to give you a very honest answer. I mean, so if you look, um, okay, so like if you look at crowdfunding,
Okay.
there 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 isn't any kind of a standardized pricing that has been established
No, there
in
hasn't
crowdfunding.
been.
So like for instance, Hidden Dragon, or all these books that we're going to talk about today, Magna, the Magna books, both volumes. Each volume is
Yeah.
76 pages. The volume for the Posse, 76 pages. That's $25 for 76 pages. But people are doing campaigns of 24-page books for $25.
Hmm.
So there isn't a standardization in the pricing. Whereas, let's say if you were going to go to a comic shop and pick up a book, or if you were going to pick up like, a graphic novel or a manga book, you would have in mind there is a certain bang for the buck that I need.
Okay.
So I realize that the crowdfunding is still kind of nascent, and it's still developing and burgeoning, but there aren't just kind of these basic rules of the road. So it's like when I made a book that big, you got 172 pages, and how are you going to price that? If I price that with 24 pages for $25, that book would be astronomical.
Oh my God.
You'd be paying, to get the commensurate amount, you'd be paying over $100 to get that graphic novel. But that graphic novel was a $35 graphic novel.
Yes.
472 pages versus people doing 24, 25 page books for $25. And I still heard people, and that's what, and the kind of, and I'm always, I get it. I'm always open to give people rationale behind why I do something. If I do something, I should have a rationale behind it. Somebody asked me, why was that book $35? And I just said, just graciously, let's do the math. If you're paying $35 for 172 pages, and you're paying $25 for 24 pages.
It makes sense to me. I feel like, the bigger books for that price range to me are a better deal. And that's not knocking anybody because I never know what someone had to pay their artist or whatever the case, what printer they used, So I don't know if a lot of that goes into price points or anything. So I don't judge. I just back what I like, pretty much. If I like it, I'll back it,
But that's fine.
This is a better bang for your buck, something like
this. But what that means is it better to do smaller books? Is it small? Is it better to put it out in smaller installations? But honestly, with like a story like Legacy of Fury, given the way that story unfolded, you really needed all 6 issues.
Oh, yes, you did.
To kind of get to the, and I think you get there and you're like, okay, that was satisfying.
Oh, yes.
But if I give you one issue of that and tell you like, next year I'm going to give you next issue and we're going to do this for 6 years.
Oh, no.
You know what, no, John?
I'll buy it, but I don't want to wait.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
It's just good I feel like too, it's like if you are able to get the books out there, get them out there. Yeah. That's just how I look at it. So let's talk about, you worked alongside Phoenix Animation? You worked at Comic Palooza?
Yeah.
How did that go? How was your Comic-Con experience?
That was eye-opening in a very good way.
Okay.
I hadn't been to a show since pre-pandemic.
Okay. All
Um,
right. So how have they changed? I mean, when did you work your first show? I have to ask.
oh, okay. So
I have to
the
ask,
first,
John.
I'm glad you asked. Now people are gonna know.
I,
They're gonna get an idea
I
of,
mean, I know you have me beat. I was working shows since
yeah.
2014,
Hmm.
2013, 2014.
Yeah.
So,
So the first show that I worked was with Motown
oh my goodness. When you were
Motown
doing stuff in
Animation,
Motown,
and I want to say I'm gonna age myself like it's nobody's business.
I still think
Uh,
it's the coolest thing that you worked with Motown and for the animation stuff and everything, because just like the stuff that I watched growing up and everything, and I was around. I think that is just awesome, and just knowing some of
it
the
was
people that
fun.
were working there at the time.
It was
So,
fun. We're talking. This is in the '90s. So we're talking '95.
yeah,
This is when Image was still big.
yep.
Spawn was doing, a million units a month. Motown had gotten a distribution deal with Image. So, I
Hmm.
mean, these comic book, I mean, Rob Liefeld, Mark Silvestri, I mean, these dudes were rock stars.
Oh
Michael
yes.
Turner, these dudes were rock stars. And the fun thing in LA is the preponderance of them were out there. So we were in the Miracle Mile area of LA, which is kind of like La Brea. For those that kind of know LA a little bit, if you ever visited the La Brea Tar Pits, that's where that is. It's not too far, a little bit south of Melrose. And then you had, Michael Turner's studio, and you had you had Top Cow on the west side. Then you had basically the Image headquarters, and you had Rob Liefeld's guys in Anaheim, which was southeast
Hmm.
of where we were. So it was like a mecca
Oh,
of.
John, hold on 1 second. You can keep talking. I have to
Okay,
get off the camera and get these cats out of here.
I
They've
saw
been
that cat
fighting.
jump.
Oh yeah, they're fighting
Yeah,
on top of my Jean Grey statues a minute ago. They didn't knock anything down, but now it's time.
now
So
it's time.
just you can.
Yeah. So um,
I can hear you. I'm gonna be. You can hear me, correct?
I
I
can
might
hear you. I can totally
be
hear
under
you.
water a
Cool.
little bit,
Okay. Awesome.
but
And this was just it was a great time. Had an opportunity to meet a lot of these guys. We kind of go went down to San Diego. That was the first time that I uh, had the opportunity to be behind an exhibiting table. I was assistant editing on some of the books at the time, so the book that I wrote hadn't been published yet by Motown. And just, I mean, you want to talk about um, the the fever and the hype for comics.
yep.
It was so high. And this was something that Brandon and I talked about, and I'm actually going to be posting a video in the next couple of days in this regard. So this was when, like, people were naming their kids Logan,
Mm-hmm.
because of Wolverine. So I mean, like, the comic book hype was high, and the Image guys were on top of the world. Flash forward to today, and
Oh,
going to Comics Palooza. Um, you know, I feel like there's a thought process of like, man, it's like, our fan base is gone. We're aging out as comic book readers. Our niche is just shrinking and shrinking. And one of the things that Brandon put me onto, because I was there at the show, it's a comic book show. This isn't even the anime show. The anime show is coming up
yeah.
next weekend at the exact same spot. Um, there were a lot of weebs, and
Oh yeah.
this is at a comic show. So
Well,
I
I
mean,
oh, I can tell you right now, manga outsells the comic books in the shop. Both of the
yeah,
shops.
I
They
believe
cannot keep manga in. People are not happy with like the current realm of comics. I'm not going to get into it. They're just not happy about
it. Yeah,
things that they're reading. A lot of older readers, if these shops didn't have back issues, that I know, they would not be, getting those comic sales. Everyone will buy a number one. They will buy a death for collecting purposes, but are they really reading it? I mean, we at one point, X-Men was the largest like comic hero group that everyone was sub to. Do you know how
Yeah.
many people dropped X-Men over the past couple years? I can't even get into it. Shows have
Wow.
changed drastically even from when I started.
Yeah.
Shows have now become more focused on also celebrity and cosplay.
Yep.
So it's taken away from the comics as a whole. You get more promotion, not really, they don't really promote for the comic creators and artists unless it's one of the super big names that they have a comic that a movie was based on, a
Right.
movie. They did a movie for the based on their comic, which is
Yeah.
nothing like the comic because when you get young readers in the shop, and I used to love selling, oh, I want Infinity Gauntlet. Okay, yep, at this time, this is worth this much. Oh, your parent will buy it for you. That's fine. Come back in. That was nothing like the movie. Yeah. I told you it wouldn't be like the movie.
Yeah.
Or, Old Man Logan, people, because
Yep.
Logan, nothing like that movie.
Yep. Exactly.
Nothing is anything like any of the movies that are out comic book
Yeah.
wise. I
It's
mean,
true.
300 maybe is pretty close, I would
Yeah,
say.
that's probably the closest.
300 is probably, and Sin City is probably a little bit close. Actually, probably the ones that are based on Frank Miller books are probably pretty close, I
Yeah.
would say. But
He
even then,
definitely
there's more
he
depth
definitely
in
frames his
them.
book for movies. He frames his books for movies.
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
but
But
it's interesting because so we're at the show and I'm like, man, I was expecting, you know, it, I guess more comic folks as opposed to like kind of weebs. But the thing that was really cool, and Brandon was just like, look, man, he's like, you know, you have to change the way you're pitching your book. It's like,
mhm.
you know, and I think the thing that we have to realize about the comic book industry, when people think about the comic book industry, they think about what the big two is doing. And
Yes.
that is a big turnoff
Yes, and that is a
to people
problem.
across the board. So part of what we have to do is we have to differentiate. And one of the great ways was actually, as Brandon was kind of educating me, I started drawing some parallels between my book and some of the manga and anime that's out there.
Oh, you
You
definitely
know,
can do that.
and that framed it for folks. Even though the artistic style isn't a manga style, then they got to realize, okay, well, this is a good story. Because what do the folks really like about manga? They like the fact that, like, okay, well, it's creator owned. That's us.
Yes, it
That's what
is
we do.
creator owned. Yep,
It's it's
exactly.
it's not a corporate book. It's a creator owned book, and
Mhm.
the creator is exercising their vision over that story. And when
Mhm.
when even when manga folks understand that that's what you're doing, they're like, oh, that's the kind of stuff that I read. That's the kind of animation. They watch anime because they don't want to watch, you know, somebody trying to, give you some kind of political statement.
Well,
They
you know
want to
what
be
too?
entertained.
Sometimes the anime is slightly different than the manga, but for the most part, I'll tell you this much. If you read Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, all right, one of the main characters, I should say, because it's like a team effort and it depends on, different perspectives, but it's Goku for the most part. Goku
Mhm.
is your hero. You don't have to worry about when you read the books that all of a sudden, something's, or no matter what happens to Goku, he's always going to be the hero for the most part.
Yeah.
That's just his role. The roles are established and they pretty much keep the roles what they are. You're not going to worry about Chi Chi in a Dragon Ball movie just going to all out annihilate people like Goku. They're not
Yeah.
just going to do it to do it. Now, Vegeta's my favorite character in the Dragon Ball series. Unfortunately, Vegeta never gets the win. I would love, but it's just
Let
not
me tell
how
you
it is.
something. Let me tell you, when I was at the show, this dude came to the, you can ask Brandon, dude came to the table.
Hmm.
He had a little baby. That baby's name was Vegeta.
What he named it? That's awesome. That's kind
Yes.
of awesome.
And let me tell you something. Just being at that show, there's a lot more love for Vegeta.
Oh, because
I
he's the
mean,
most
people
well-developed
love that.
character in the series. He's
Yeah.
one of, and that's what the beef is, and it's kind of like Akira Toriyama. He doesn't like the character. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it's like he doesn't like his own character, so he's just never gonna do his thing, because we have seen Vegeta. If I've watched from a long time and read for a long time. I guess I'm a weeb. I'm a comic nerd and a weeb at the same time.
Yeah.
But we've watched him grow as a character
Yeah.
and have total transformations, more so I would say than any other character, and he's probably the most well-developed character in the series. But still,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how far he gets. Goku is coming in, and Goku is going to be the victor. But there is a couple things that surprised me in recent times, but we will see what happens
Well,
with
and
that.
the thing that's cool too, though, is that the the manga is the roadmap for the anime.
Hmm.
You know, and it's funny because that to me is a path to success.
Agreed.
In terms of translating content from the page to the screen. And this is another reason why, you know, not just the comic book movies, but comics are not growing because the movies don't bring people back to the comics because they're not interrelated.
No. And then, you know what? The one thing that I hate as a comic book reader first, before watching any of the movies, is then going into the comic books and changing everything in the comic books and totally undoing things to appease the movie audience. It's not the same audience.
They're not even picking up the book.
No.
you know, it's like you're going about this completely backwards.
I agree with you.
You know,
I
so
agree with you.
I mean, my conclusion, kind of coming from that show, is that we do have younger fan base potential. It's there. It's the weebs. We have to help them to realize that the kind of stuff, the reasons why they like those books are the reasons why they will like our books.
Yeah.
Because they are creator owned, creator driven, with
Yep.
really cool stories that are set to entertain you.
Yep. And yeah, there's literally a manga for everything, John. So I think a lot of people also think that most comic books are about superheroes. And that's not necessarily true. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot maybe, but not all of them.
It's
It's
a
because what they promote it to be. They
yeah.
put more of the emphasis on promoting superhero books, but
Yeah.
there's way more comics than that. And the indie comics are a like manga in the aspect that there is so many different creators that write about so many different things. You know how there's like a manga for everything. There's like a manga for cooking. They have all these different categories. I kid you not. There's
Yeah.
you know what? There's a manga for drinking water. There's a manga for people screaming. There's a manga out there for everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing too about manga
Yeah.
readers. They can find
Exactly.
something that is their niche, and they don't give a shit about going outside of whatever, because they know, okay, I like this and I know I can find something in this category. They're not going to complain. They're not going to try to
Exactly.
convince other people what they need to do. They just
Yeah.
stay in their lane and stick with what they know. So
And
it's,
people can actually, it's something that people can do casually.
yes,
It's like, you know, the comic industry is now such that, unless you are, somebody that is dedicated, and you're going to go to that direct market shop, and you're going to do, it's like the reason why I got into comics as a kid is they were at the local drugstore.
yes, I remember you
They
told me
were
that. That was such
they
an
were
awesome
on the
story.
spinner rack, and I was amazed, because I had, I knew like the Spider-Man cartoon, I knew the Super Friends, and I'm just like, oh, this is cool. There's Wonder Woman, there's Batman, there's Spider-Man over there. Then you start picking up the books, and then I realized, oh wait, I'm putting the cart before the horse. These came first.
Yep.
This was the original stuff. Oh, that's cool. And then you kind of, it grew into, you know, wow, this is really good storytelling. And that's, another, challenge that's being faced right now for kind of the bigger comic book companies right now. But I mean, great storytelling. It still had very much adult themes, but they made it in a way where it was accessible to everybody. And all comics don't have to be accessible to everybody. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is like there was something there for everyone.
Yes.
And I remember, I mean, I look at some of the books that I picked up back then. They weren't just all superhero books. I remember I used to pick up like All Out War.
Yep. If you ever got
Western.
Conan,
Yeah.
fantasy.
So I mean, the I think it's always having, just this is an industry that has always, you know, had like diverse genres, and we're probably right now, at least from a mainstream perspective, we're probably is
Oh,
less diverse in terms of the types of content that's being provided. And I'm not talking about race swap, and that's not diversity. That's just stupidity, and it's really insulting to everybody that's involved. But really telling different types of stories, whether it's westerns or horror, or whatever it is, that's lacking from the mainstream. But folks don't realize that there is this thriving independent community,
yes. Yeah, I
that's
know.
providing stuff.
You know how many people like, and that's why I love going into the shops. And one thing I really want to do is if you have books or you have promotional stuff, you want to get it into a shop, contact me. I mean, you want to send me some stuff to put out, I'll put your stuff out. Just make sure you have a way to be contacted, a QR code in there or whatnot. That's how you spread the word. I think a lot of people too are afraid to work with shops or afraid to, if you want to put yourself out there and you want your stuff to grow financially so you can make
Yeah.
more of it, you just got to get out there, talk to everyone that you can. A
Right.
tattoo shop that will hold your book, do just any shop, you name it.
It's funny that
It's
you should mention that because when I was little, my mom, there was this one dress shop that my mom used to go to, and the dress shop was across the street from a 7-Eleven. And the ladies that ran the dress shop, the first time I ever read Fantastic Four was in their dress shop.
they were smart
They
women.
they picked up a Fantastic Four comic book, and they had some other comic books, and it was right there in the shop. So I like literally like my mom would go to that shop and like she'd want to leave and I wouldn't want to leave. Because I'm like, I'm not done reading this comic book. So I mean, no, you're right, and I'm definitely going to talk with you offline about that more because I think we have to get out and grow the pie,
Yeah.
and we have to do so. We have to get into stores. We have to get in whatever that looks like. We have to get into stores.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what store it is, and I think too a lot of people knock small cons. Now there's a big difference between working a large con and a smaller con. The smaller cons now, the 1-day shows, the 2-day shows,
Yeah.
those are the shows where you're going to find people that actually want to buy comics.
There you go.
And people don't really want to seem to work the smaller shows for some reason because they think bigger show, more opportunity. Well, you can go to a show that has thousands of people and make 10 sales, or you can go to a smaller show, work it, and you can sell half of your inventory, if not all of your inventory, because there are people directly there to buy books.
So exactly.
And the smaller shows, the booths, how much they charge, it's more cost effective too.
You're
in the long run.
Right.
I've worked a lot of cons my whole life, and now it's the smaller shows. Like, I'm not knocking larger cons besides Fan Expo. I'm not a fan. I might be working one, but I don't care. They're not the best to the creators there, the vendors. I've worked a ton of them. Maybe they've changed. I don't know. I haven't worked it before since COVID. Yeah. So I can't say. Maybe things have changed. But my last experience there, even working as press, it was a nightmare. Really? So I can't, just very unorganized. The smaller shows are more organized. I feel that the people run them. I went to the show Wicked Comic-Con in Boston.
Okay.
And that was earlier this year. And Wicked is run by the people that used to run the old Boston Comic Con before Fan Expo took it over. And that show was one of the best shows that I worked in years.
Really?
I mean, but I will say, if you get the opportunity to do, I have never been to San Diego, but if you, I assume San Diego's run by the same people that run New York, I believe, if I can think correctly. It's the same kind of circuit. If you get the chance to work New York, everyone should work New York once in your life. Go there.
That's what I keep hearing.
You go there the day before for setup. Like we would drive there overnight. We'd pull as soon as we could set up, which would be like 5 o'clock in the morning. We were pulling in, setting up. You watch everything get built around you. People are there. It's just amazing, and you stay until the very end. Then you get to clean house. So people will they'll throw away like everything, all this promotional stuff, autographs, everything. You won't even believe the stuff that I've acquired working New York Comic Con, but it's an experience. That's where, just everything sells. Sunday, it's like crazy, it's make a deal day.
Like a fire sale.
It's like people are throwing money at you. Yeah. Deal. Yeah. We're going to make everything just throwing money at you. Wow. Like it is overwhelming, but it's worth it. And the booths are very expensive, but you're definitely going to make sales. And even if you don't, and you may take a loss financially, I'm going to be honest, the experience is needed to work New York, just having that experience. Now let's get into Magna and the Posse.
Yep.
Let's pull up your campaign here.
Cool.
So you have how many days? 2 days left on your campaign.
Yes. So closing on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. The Posse just seems so interesting to me. And we talked about this a little bit last time you were on. So now I'll have you elaborate more on the Posse. We'll go over Magna.
Okay.
But
very cool.
We'll start with Magna first. Let's just look at the trailer for anyone that may not have seen this trailer. So we'll take a look at that. I have to shut my camera off still, the internet connection. And I shared audio. So, all right, let's play this.
Welcome, Beyond Time travelers. You are in for a real treat with our first ever 3-in-1 campaign. We are making our biggest offering yet, featuring 3 graphic novels, 2 story arcs, all in one Beyond Time universe. Get ready for Volume 2 of Magna, The Last Pantheon. We had a successful campaign for Volume 1, and we don't want to leave you hanging. This campaign will offer both Magna, The Last Pantheon, Volumes 1 and 2, so that those who have just discovered the adventures of Magna can get caught up. There are more deep mysteries that will be uncovered as Kari Skogsholm discovers more of her past and reaches her final stand against supernatural forces bent on humanity's destruction. But wait, there's more. We are also introducing our Beyond Time supporters to the Posse. This is the first time we are releasing the 76-page graphic novel of the Posse Fugitives Volume 1. It is the first installation of 2 gang members, Devin Willis and Ulysses Sanchez, and their need to put aside rival affiliations in order to save their city from the chaos following a full-scale jailbreak, releasing the deadliest of metahuman convicts. All of this happening in one amazing Beyond Time universe. All production is 100% complete as we continue our mission to bring you the very best in comic book entertainment. Join us for boundless imagination.
Yes,
woo! That beat, I was here like just rocking out to it.
Yeah. That's my buddy Scott Thrill. He's the one that does the majority of my beats. So he's at Scott Thrill if someone needs music for one of their campaigns or something. He makes great beats.
That is awesome. I see your featured perk here at the top. You get to choose one of each of the covers. Is that what it is?
That's correct.
Here? Oh, that's awesome. You have the cover 3 reprint here for Magna available.
Mm-hmm.
It's a graphic novel trifecta. So for $70,
so you get three 76-page graphic novels for $70 plus shipping.
That is a deal. And your shipping is always very affordable too.
I really
So,
do I really, really do my best. I mean, it's like it's unfortunate, especially for international. It's
oh
just
my goodness.
unavoidable. It's just unavoidable how absurdly expensive it is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense.
No, and it's gotten worse, because I'm at UPS 2 days a week.
Oh, okay, so you know,
So it's horrific. And then there are certain places you can't even ship to anymore.
yeah,
Or the person that might back, they may be hit with a fine. So that's why it is important to offer digital campaigns. But at the same time, I
yeah,
feel for people that want physical books and have to back digitally. So hopefully, in the near future, that will get worked out because it's
seriously,
ridiculously high. So, what
yeah.
do we want to go over first?
So,
Do you want to give a rundown on Magna? Because
yeah,
people are familiar with
yeah.
Magna.
So with Magna, that's actually, so this is the second volume. So you get the
Hey,
completion of the story arc for Magna. As you can see, you get three awesome covers to choose from. You know what? I'll tell you, with the cover options for all these books, you can't go wrong.
I know.
And
I love
but
three.
and the thing is, there is a cover gallery in the back. So no matter what cover you choose, you're gonna get everything. So last thing I want is for people not to be able to get everything, when they back the book. And it's the story of our protagonist. Her name is Cady Skogholm, and this is a little bit of a period piece book. So it's set in 1942. So you
Mhm.
have um, you know World War II is afoot, and she is an extraordinary human being, and she finds herself, she learns that she's adopted, and this sends her on a journey of self-discovery. So she makes her way to Finland, and there you get to see some of the effects of what's going on in World War II, Russia and Finland, I was just as someone who's as an American who studied World War II, you're always aware of, kind of, you know, from the perspective of America, what's going on, but it's like, what was going on in Norway? That was crazy.
Mhm.
So I mean, there so get into a little bit of that. And like I said, my objective is not to preach to folks. That is just a little historical context, and it's historical context that matters when you learn more about her father in the story and how they end up migrating to the United States.
Yeah.
So it's just part of kind of the story of, as she's trying to piece together who she is, her adoptive father. Then she finds herself uh, amidst a disheveled band of the last of the deities of the world. So there's Egyptian gods, there's Olympians, Greek, there's Assyr, Norse, there's Chinese, and they are in a struggle for survival. And she finds herself,
Mhm.
a, all of a sudden in the midst of their struggle. And then as you get into volume two, you learn more about who she really is, and then you learn who's really coming after the pantheon members, and then you learn kind of the pivotal role that she plays in all of this. So it's a fun story. It's a big story,
Yeah.
um, and but it plays well into the whole Beyond Time universe. And um, you won't see it so much in this volume, but in the next, you'll see how Magna is more intertwined with the other stories as well.
Very interesting. I love too that you have basically all of these different mythologies mixed in
Yeah.
here because, I loved learning about mythologies, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
many of them, even religions, are very similar in certain aspects. There are stories that
Yes.
are kind of mirror each other, just the characters are different or the place is different, but they're very, very similar.
Yes.
So I love that you've combined all of this together.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm wondering where this is going to fit and like, where is this going to, I wonder what book is this going to pop into? How,
well,
if this is going to go across the unit, is it going across other books or, I mean, or wait, should I not
so
Is that a
Well,
spoiler?
no, this is fine. So I mean, so this story arc is self-contained.
Yes.
So, but as it's one of those things, especially as a writer, you have more stories than you're ever going to be able to tell. But from a perspective of kind of world building,
Yes.
world building is something that has always been near and dear to my heart as
My
somebody who grew
favorite.
up playing D&D.
The
So
fantasy. Oh.
the world building, world engine. So there's
Hmm.
actually an engine to how my world works. And as you get like the posse starts to dig more into the engine, but you'll realize that like, oh, it's applicable throughout. So Magna reveals to you a little bit of how the world engine works.
Okay.
And to me, one of the things like back in the day, I used to love the Marvel Universe books
Yes.
because I always liked getting the perspective of where did characters fall kind of, in the grand scheme of things. And,
Yes.
kind of how did they, and it's like, you have to have some we have the benefit of having experienced these things in comics. So I think as creators, we can come back and say like, okay, I need to develop an engine. I need to kind of understand, the parameters that all these characters work in,
Hmm.
because they didn't have that. Marvel and DC, they're just creating all this cool stuff, and then at some point they were like, "Hey, man, we got to make all this stuff work together."
Yeah.
You know, that could be a challenge if you hadn't thought about it previously. And you're doing it on the back end. But we have the benefit of kind of knowing, well, if you're going to build a world, you really need to do so conscious,
Hmm.
of kind of where your characters fit in the whole panorama of the world. So
No.
that's part of the fun for me is I have the whole panorama, and I'm like, okay, these pieces are all fitting in, and as more and more stories are told, people are going to be like, oh, okay, I see how
Ah.
Tiger's power is, there's some connectivity here with what's going on in Magna, and I see, oh, okay, this is cool.
That's what I was kind of thinking too. When you just said it, you took the words out of my mouth. You're so good like that, John.
Oh man,
Mind
I'm just a big nerd. I love this stuff. It's like sometimes it's like beautiful mind.
reading.
You're just like you've got these grand plans, and my wife is just like, oh boy, come back to Earth, John, come back.
Now the posse here.
Yes,
So I've been interested and intrigued by this ever since the last show.
yes,
When we look, I believe it was we looked through the Beyond Time website,
that's right.
correct?
That's correct.
So, do you
That's
want to
correct.
talk about this with everyone? Because
Yes.
I just think this is such a cool concept and this is so unique. And this is going to be a great book. I know it. Like,
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for the posse. I mean, it's really expanding the Beyond Time universe.
yes.
So, just kind of for perspective, those of you that picked up Black Tiger, that's primarily happening in a Western seaboard city in the universe. The posse is happening on the eastern is on the East Coast. So, kind of south from where you are, it's my version of New York. It's called the Decapolis. So instead of 5 boroughs, there's 10.
Okay.
And kind of the way it's structured is the story starts off really with a bang. It's a privatized prison. There's a prison break led by two of the inmates, Ulysses Sanchez and
Mm.
Devin Willis. So they're both gang members that were given life sentences, and it ends
Yep.
up in this privatized prison. Those that have life sentences, they end up being subject to experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
So these two dudes manifested powers, and they ended up inadvertently leading a break. So the Decapolis is flooded with all these metahumans from this privatized prison.
It's
So
so
you have
awesome.
so you have basically the Decapolis. Each borough has its own ecosystem, and it has its own kind of crime organization. and
Mm.
they're relatively respective of each other. So it's like, hey, this is my turf. But then the metas, they flood the city and everything goes topsy turvy. The Magi are kind of the head of these different crime organizations. Magi start getting either picked off by metahumans, or they employ metahumans and they start taking over. So it just becomes a big land grab for
I
the
mean,
criminal element. And these are some of my favorite guys. They're the
I mean,
dinos.
look at this. You know what I'm saying? How can you not look through this, okay? And be like, I'm not interested. I need to know what's happening. Like, what is going on here? How did this happen? Why are there dinosaurs here wearing clothing? They're fighting. People are gonna have to fight dinosaurs. Like,
Well, you know what? Let me
or
tell
are
you,
they people? Are they really
these
people? You know, like, or maybe someone's shape shifting. I
these
gotta find out.
anthropomorphic. I'm not going to give away too much, but these anthropomorphic dinosaurs, they're
Mm-hmm.
called the dinos, so it's right on
Yeah.
the nose. Their name. These dudes are just wrecking machines. They're for hire, and they just like to tear stuff up. So you have
Yeah.
different elements in the city. So these guys are basically a crew that's for hire,
Okay.
and you get to see them. This is what they do.
They just
You
clean up
know,
house. It looks
this is
like
that's them at their best, and and their
that is
worst at the same
so
time.
cool. It is just so cool, John. I love this.
So this is my version of New York.
I love it. I love it.
And
Oh, it's so
basically you have a
awesome.
couple of these gang members. They have to put aside their differences, and they have
Yeah.
to band together to save their city. And you know, it makes for a very long-tailed story because there's a lot to be cleaned up. But it's a lot of fun as the story develops. You have some of those hero for hire type elements, a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of escape from New York type elements to
Oh,
it.
I love that.
You've got the metahumans, um, and I think all of my stories are kind of amalgamations of different things that I love, and this is much more of a kind of like a street gritty story. So you get like some of the Puerto Rican culture in here, like
Yeah.
Ulysses Sanchez there, and and New York is so diverse, so you get a little bit of everybody. You get a little bit of everybody in there. So it's a fun story. Um, I can't, and it's one of those things like me. I want to give you guys the trope. I want to give you
I want to
guys
hear the trope. And you know me, I'm just like, say it, John, say it,
I want to, but it's like at the same time, it's like with Black Tiger.
I
I
know
want you to read it
you
and then
gotta
be
read
like,
it.
holy smokes, there's a lot more going on here than I thought. You
Oh my
know,
goodness. Like you
so I'm trying to give people enough to glom onto without, it's
so
tough.
who did the artwork for this
So
series?
yeah, so
Because this panel, this page here is amazing. Just the perspective of everything.
yes.
I mean, it's really what? One, two. So we have an L-shaped panel here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yep, that's
three panels,
L-shaped.
but it gives the
Mm-hmm.
illusion that it's closer to six almost. One, two,
Yeah.
three, four, five. Almost no, five, it looks like. But it just the perspective of all this. This is amazing. And this kind of this is the stuff that gets me excited about your books.
Well, I've
It's
been really blessed because working with folks, I mean, sequential art, it
mhm,
is an art,
it is.
and the ability to tell stories, the ability to guide the eye, so that because I mean you've done that before where you've picked up a book
Yeah.
and you weren't sure which panel was next, and it didn't have like a flow to it, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit choppy. I mean, sequential art is key.
It is
That's what
key.
makes this engine run. So getting artists that understand how to lay things out,
Mhm.
how to guide your eye, so that because like this is one of the things that I love to do. And ever since I worked at Motown, Michael Davis, the team we would go to Golden Apple because
Okay.
just a couple miles up the road, off La Brea on Melrose. from where our office was. So we would go there on Wednesdays and pick up books, and he would flip through the books. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, man, what are you doing? You're ruining the reading experience. He's like, no. He's like, I flip through the book and I know pretty much 80% of the story by flipping through it. Then I go back and read it and I pick up the part that I didn't pick up. So he's like, there's two kind of mechanisms at work here for the telling of the story. There's the sequential art, and the sequential art
Yeah.
should tell me a part of the story without confusion. And then I come back and the words should fill in, kind of like the smaller rocks and the pebbles, should fill in the stuff that the art didn't tell me. And if that's not how it works, then something's amiss.
Yeah. I
You
feel
know,
like your books would be a great tool for someone that is looking to get into this industry, just to read through and look at. I'm not saying copy what you're
yeah,
doing completely. You have to formulate your own style, but I think it is could be very inspirational and could be a good guide for people to look at, because what you do works.
I appreciate that.
It
And that
works.
was, you know, that's one of the things that I was, you know, working as an editor, having my work edited, which, you know, is it can really leave you beat up. But it was a really good process
Hmm.
as I was growing in the industry, because you start to realize that a lot of things that you take for granted that you don't notice, that means it's working.
Yes.
But when you start noticing like how unsung lettering is. Lettering
Oh
is great
yeah.
when you don't notice it. But at the point when you start noticing things that are weird in lettering, then you got problems.
Hmm.
Or you're noticing that the layouts are funky. Then you've got problems. But it's like when it flows seamlessly, you know, the layouts don't get much you know, they don't get much notice. The letters don't get much notice.
No, it's
Um,
true. It's true. That's a
it's only
fact.
when they suck that we notice
Until when you
them.
see the bad lettering. Yes, exactly. And then you're
Yeah,
like, whoa, okay,
you're,
I see
you're
the
like,
difference.
you
There's
know,
always there's like this little shadow on lettering. Do you know what I'm talking about? And
yes.
when you see the lettering without that and you compare it side by side, you're just like, yikes.
You're like, I know you're like,
Okay, I see. I see. You know, so that's why everyone is an important component, on your team that
yeah,
creates the books together. You guys all have to be able to work together and just know who you're working with and what they're capable of. You have
it's
to be
important.
very aware. It's important. So
Yeah.
let's go through your perks real quick before I have to head out for the
Okay.
evening. And then you'll be back on for the next Black Tiger book.
Oh, you know that. You know that.
You'll be on for that. So we have,
I'm gonna have to preview some art with you, because
oh,
if you think the art was hot now, I mean, I,
oh,
I
good
I know
God.
we're talking about this campaign, but the next Black Tiger book. Oh my goodness.
I can't
Yes.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm excited for all this too. The Posse especially. Like
Yes.
the Posse, it's just such a unique concept. So I have to find out. Just
And
and this is going back to what? A year ago?
yes.
I've been like, all
And
right, when is he
the
releasing the Posse?
characterizations in there are so fun. I want you to read it, and then I also don't mind coming on after you've read it.
Oh,
You
John,
know,
you're welcome on here anytime. You're like one
I,
of my favorites. So
I
I
appreciate
hate to
that.
say I have favorites, but we always have such a great conversation and you just have so much knowledge and you've worked a lot of aspects within this industry. So you bring a lot to the table. Plus you're passionate and you have energy about things. And it's just, I'm always excited to talk to you. You're just all around pleasant, John.
I
I,
appreciate that, Kayla. That
so
goes both ways, that's for sure.
So we got I'm going to go through this really quick because I
Okay.
have a couple minutes. So we have your digital choice. We went through
Yep.
your feature perk,
That's right.
your your digital
Our
choice
choice,
here,
you get 75
$10.
pages for $10.
Yeah.
And it's structured so that if you want to get a couple or all three of them, you can get them. There's a digital deluxe
Yeah.
for $30. I would get that if you want to get all three of them, because you also get a free year subscription to Global Comics. And Global
Oh.
Comics has so many comics on their site, comics and manga. I think they just made a deal with Valiant too. So I mean, you get a ton of comics for the same price as if you a la carted, all three books.
Hmm. That is a great deal. You
Yeah.
know what? I love too that your wife is your editor.
Let me tell you, she's a tough editor.
Oh, I bet. I bet you should see me right now. I'm working on things with Ed. And it's poor Ed. And I know I know he's in the chat earlier too. But I'm like, we're working on some kind of fantasy thing. And I'm just like being a nutcase. I've literally pieced together a book. It's like a scrapbook. It has paint swatches in it. I'll send you pictures, John, how my brain works. And I'm like, here, you're going to have to use this as a guide.
Nice.
He's a great artist and everything.
Yeah.
I'm horrible.
But I'll be the first one to say that anyone that's creating a book, you
Yeah.
need an editor from the beginning of the process and throughout the process.
Yeah.
It's of utmost importance.
You need an honest editor. You need someone
Yes,
that's going to
you
be
need a real
honest with
editor.
you. And you need somebody too that respects your work for what it is and that is
Mhm.
there to help you tell your vision and enhance your story, not
Yeah.
change your story around completely. You know,
I know I've seen that. Some editors, they like do fan
they
fiction.
change it to their
They want to change the story up. It's like,
needs.
no, that's
Yeah,
not your job as an editor.
that is not your job as an editor. As someone that edits, that is not your job as an editor. You know,
Kayla.
So I love these beanies.
Oh, I love these beanies. So they're reversible. So like the
Yeah,
Magnum one
so
is
cool.
yellow with black writing, and you reverse it, it's black with yellow writing. And the same for the Posse one with red and black and red. They're so cool.
They are awesome. You have the first printings available here, limited
So
number of them.
a limited number, because that was kind of what was remaining from the
Mhm.
other campaign. So there's still 11 of those.
Same thing here.
Exactly, because there's 3 cover options. So I'm
Yeah.
giving folks the opportunity to get the first printings.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I would want a first printing if I had the opportunity to get it for something that, it's a second chance for you to get it if you didn't get it the first time. We have the volume 2, choose a cover. I love that.
Yep.
The Posse number 1. This is my choice for this week. This is my book to back here.
Nice.
The Posse. Back Magna as well too, but the Posse, it just caught me. And I can only be honest, it's so unique. Oh, it's going to be a thrill ride. I know it.
Oh,
I know it. I love the mythology about Magna, but the Posse, it's new and exciting to me.
Yes.
So
I'm excited for that.
You want to get the featured perk, really, everybody. That's what you want to get because that's the most bang for your buck. And the quality, I'm assuming the quality is going to be very similar, or if not exactly the same, to the quality of this book here. This is just amazing quality. The pages, they are so like, I don't know if I'm going to even end up getting a paper cut because I keep touching these pages like this. I wouldn't even feel it. I bet they're like silk. Then we have the T-shirts. Who designed your T-shirts? Was it Shay again? Or
Shay. So Shay designed the T-shirts. She did an amazing job. There's 4. She's great with this kind of design.
Yes.
So she took 2 of the covers for Magna, and it takes work to kind of get the shirts designed properly. So she had to do a little bit of lifting to make that work, but she did a great job with both of those. And
Shay's
for
great.
The Posse, that offset image was actually her idea. She went through the whole story, and she picked that offset image. I'm like, that's awesome.
I love that.
You have the offset image, and then you have another artist who goes by Artesita 1. His name is Charles Oak. He made that last image, and it's so fun. I mean,
what it reminds me of? It almost reminds me of I have Menace to Society.
Totally.
Like, all right, so that's in one of my like top 10 movies of all time.
Yes.
There is a cover to one of the DVDs that's kind of similar in a way. So when I first looked at it, that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
You know, I know that's like,
No, it has that absolute feel. And
Yeah.
if you actually look at the third
let me go up.
Posse cover, that is basically a complete homage to Boys in the Hood.
Really?
Cuba Gooding
Oh
Jr.
yeah,
in the
definitely.
middle,
That definitely
Ice
is.
Cube off to the side. It is a complete. If you pulled up the Boys in the Hood poster, that's it.
Yeah, it literally is. Now that
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, because that's in my room too. I own
Yeah.
that as well. So,
Yeah.
and then, so I just want to pop over. Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard. I wish I didn't have limited time this evening. So we have 2 days left on this.
That's right.
Are you going to how many days has this ran so far?
This is it. This is the last 30.
Okay. So this is the last 30. Are you
That's right.
going to keep it up after this?
I think.
Or are you going to
I'm
put
gonna
it onto
keep
your
up.
website?
So I think I'm going to keep it up for a little bit.
Okay.
And then I'm going to I'll be talking with you. I'm going to really focus. I'm going to shift my strategy to really focus on getting the book out into other venues.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Whatever you want to do. If there's any way that I can help you or whatever the case, yes, reach out to me, John.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Is there anything else that you want to say about this campaign before I get you out of here, or any advice you want to give to anybody?
In terms of advice, there's no better time to be a creator.
Awesome. It's true.
I haven't seen anything like this. Make sure you don't have to make a lot of the mistakes that have been made by people like myself and others, because everyone's willing to be a resource for you in this community.
Yeah.
You have people like Kayla. You need an editor if you're going to create a product, and an editor isn't somebody that comes onto the project after you've done all the art and you just got you're trying to fill in word bubbles. You need an editor from the beginning.
Oh no, you want me there during your artistic process, because I'm going to see things that you didn't even know you had wrong.
Exactly.
Or someone like Spencer. Spencer needs me to tell him when to slow down, stay on pace. What storyline are we doing right now?
Those things are key. Awesome.
So, yeah. All right, John, it was a pleasure to have you on. You'll be back on again. I cannot wait for just everything that you're doing with the Beyond Time universe. It's so exciting. Everything is so fresh and so new. And I love it. And it's always a pleasure to have you here. And to everyone that came out tonight, thank you so much. I'm sorry I ran a little late, but I'm so thankful that you come and watch me every week. So thank you so much, guys. And until next time, I will see you next week.